photos are still the most important product in real estate ever. They aren't perfect, and that's why you need the floor plan, but they're pretty good at telling the story of, is this the right place?
You talk about it privately, we talk about it publicly. This is the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast. Welcome again to the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host, James Twiggins, along with Mr. Trial by Combat, Keith Robinson.
Yes,
I've been waiting to work that one in there, my friend.
I'm going to get that shirt made someday.
We just need to do it because everybody wants one. So tell us about our guest today, Mr. Jeff Allen, the president of CubiCasa.
Yes.
Man, it was a really good conversation.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground, man. We talked about changes to the appraisal industry now and in the future and how that could be speeding up for residential real estate. We talked about the top 3 things that a buyer wants to see in a listing when they're looking on a portal or on a website. We talked about augmented reality and floor plans and how AR and VR could fit into the new world.
That's cool. Yeah.
He had a beautiful concept of rich media that I want you to listen for. It was great. And the portal wars, we covered that. And most importantly, we dug into this a couple different times, the importance of how agents need to be differentiating in this next business cycle. It was just a common theme that kept coming up, which he had great insights into.
Tune in, kids. It's going to be amazing.
Put it in your ears.
Jeff, welcome to the podcast. Keith and I are very excited to have you here today for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is you were doing some really, really cool things. We're going to talk about some of that. I'm going to go off on a rant about how important it is what you're doing. Well, I do, but in a different way. How cool your product is for buy-side agents to increase their value proposition. I know we'll dig deep on that. There's a lot of really good stuff that you guys are doing, but we'll jump in first. Tell the viewers and listeners, who is Jeff Allen?
Wow, there's a lot of pressure there.
Yikes.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. Long-time listener, first-time caller. So just a bit about my background. My entire career, I've in one form or another been involved in real estate, either on the real estate side of things or the mortgage side of things. So kind of been part of both of those segments. But I didn't plan it that way. It just sort of happened. Stumbled into it. And
welcome
here we
to
are.
the club, by the way.
Yeah. Isn't that weird about this industry?
And then you can't get out.
No,
you're just stuck. Forever.
Yeah, it's like The Godfather, right? Mm-hmm. Every time I try to get out, they pull me back in.
Yeah, exactly. I'd prefer not to think of it as being stuck, but let's let's roll with that. So actually, my first job out of college, I was the lockbox guy at the Minneapolis Area Association of Realtors.
Nice,
congrats.
That was my entree in. Family friend got me the job. And so all the agents that were coming in that needed, keys and boxes, I was the guy that handled the paperwork.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's riveting.
I didn't think so at the time.
He was looking for what to say there. He's like, well, we all start somewhere. So there's that. Yeah, that's what he was trying to say. I'll just say it. So, you know what?
Hopefully you didn't have a lot of student loan debt. It's your first job.
To add context, my first real estate job was hanging my mom's door hangers in neighborhoods and then getting kicked off people's porches. So I'm right there with you, buddy, in the trenches.
Also aspirational.
So,
Also,
like you said, you got to start somewhere. Right?
Yeah.
So, that was the start. But over time, I've done all sorts of different things. Started a company that sold MLS housing market stats to MLSs and associations. That was called 10K Research. And then had a variety of different jobs in the mortgage side of the things, kind of on the data and analytics side, supporting the appraisal process. And then more recently, I ran innovation labs at a company called Clear Capital that was really focused on trying to enhance and modernize the appraisal process. So did a lot of skunkworks projects there. And oddly enough, one of the things we were working on was we got to figure out how to automate the creation of a floor plan. We were testing out all sorts of different tech to do it because it's a really key part of the appraisal. Like, what's the square footage? What's the layout? And so we were trying to find tech to do that. So we were looking for CubiCasa before we knew CubiCasa existed, basically.
Cool.
And then when we found it and tested it, we fell in love, did a commercial deal, eventually somehow convinced Clear Capital we ought to buy the company. And then I was honored to be asked to run it since then. So
that's awesome, man.
CubiCasa since then. Yeah.
That is a really cool story, by the way, just working your way up through in the different spots and then ending up at the top seat. That's the inspiration we love to hear. All right. So we'll do a couple rapid fires.
Hold on though, because it's rare. I was doing background for this. I read that this is the only acquisition, or it's rare for you guys to build through acquisition, right? You usually build versus buy.
Exactly.
Was there, maybe just before we get into rapid fire, I know I always screw up the format, James, sorry. But
no, it's
how do you
question.
think about build versus buy and that approach? I mean, obviously it would appear you have a heavy tilt towards build, but when the right product came along, buy made sense. But just for anyone listening who's trying to make that decision, maybe they're running their brokerage and or running their company and trying to figure out build versus buy. What's your ethos on that?
Great question. I actually have a pretty strong opinion on it. So I'm super biased towards build instead of buy because the distraction and organizational chaos caused by buy is so disruptive.
Heavy. Yeah.
You are, as soon as you buy or you decide you're going to merge two things, now the job isn't serving the customer. The job is figuring out how to tie everything together. Right. And you spend most of all day, every day trying to decide, well, you guys are on G Suite. We're on Office. Which one should we do? Maybe we should ask everybody their opinion and set up a task force.
Oh boy.
Okay. And imagine doing that on 1,500 different projects, right?
That sounds like NAR.
Let's see. Let's mark the time. It took James.
That was funny. Like
it was. No,
it
was
for
funny.
the viewers and listeners. I'm definitely a little extra spunky today because I don't feel very good. So you're going to get some weird comments in this podcast.
Woo,
so
let's go.
Sorry, you said committees and task force, and I just instantly went there. So
you have PTSD. We all do. So I think you should only buy companies or try to merge companies if that company truly does something you could never do yourself. And it just makes sense. So that CubiCasa is the only company that ever met that definition for us. Yeah.
I'll add one, and this is my opinion, not yours. Either that you couldn't do yourself or they're so far ahead.
Yeah.
Right. That it's just worth the brain damage of
trying to build it wouldn't make any sense. Or trying to build it to compete is way not a smart move versus just pick up what's already been there. So
exactly. Exactly right.
All right. Thanks for that. Now we're going to do rapid fire. I'm going to go first. Your favorite book or podcast this year or ever or recently, and why?
I'm going to do this year.
Go.
This is a little nerdy, but I love this podcast called the Dwarkesh Podcast.
Ooh. I'm sorry. Can you say that name again? I want to make sure I heard that right.
Dwarkesh.
Okay.
DWARKESH.
I spelled it right. First guess.
Nicely done. So the host's name is Dwarkesh Patel. He's this insanely smart kid. Honestly, he's got to be like 21 years old. But he'll score interviews with like the best people in AI, the best people in startups. And my favorite episode is he actually interviewed Mark Zuckerberg recently.
What?
And they had Zuck on talking about all that stuff they're doing with AI. And what I loved about it was not only Dwarkesh is a great interviewer, he goes super deep, but I think the popular perception of Zuck as kind of this like wussy, out of touch weirdo.
I don't know about the wussy part. He's like a jiu-jitsu champion.
He's been training MMA.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Get it, Zuck. Go ahead.
He was so good in the interview. He knew his business cold. He knew all the details of their strategy. He had a point of view. And it was, I think, as someone who's now running a company, it was really inspiring. Like, okay, that's the level of focus and passion and being in the details that you need to have.
Yeah.
And for a guy that wealthy and that far along on his journey to still be that way was cool.
Yeah. Well, he's not stupid. He's definitely a smart guy. No. And
what's
funny
is, heard of that pod. I'm going to add it.
I'm actually intrigued because I'm actually doing I'm trying to be Neo on the Matrix and fill my brain with stuff about AI recently. So it's my new kid.
Yeah.
I mean, the lawsuit stuff I'm tired of talking about. So we're going to find something else to talk about.
I got AI.
No, Keith's been down this rabbit hole already. There's going to be a lot more AI on the show coming up.
Yeah.
So
nice.
All right. So last question, we'll dive into all of our big ones today. So you could have lunch with one person, current historical. Who would it be and why?
I'm going to go with my favorite musical artist of all time.
Ooh.
And that's Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, it's a good one.
So
Is that
good.
okay?
Good one. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a good one.
If you have this total aside, and then we'll get to serious business, but if you haven't listened to his Audible biography that's read by him.
Yes.
Did you listen to it?
I read the book. I did not listen to it.
Listen to it. Because he's reading it. It's like he's kicking it in your kitchen, telling you the stories of his childhood. It's my favorite Audible listen probably in the last 24 months. It's phenomenal.
That's awesome. Yeah. And he's such a good writer too.
Yeah.
I mean, to be an incredible songwriter, but then his prose in that book, was incredible.
Yeah. And super vulnerable. Like he shared the highs, the lows, all of it. All right. Not what we're here to talk about. So first crack out of the box. You're kind of a lunatic. Because
guilty.
I was I'm reading quotes from you getting ready for the show, and I've talked to you a couple times, and I've heard you crazy passionate about this, and I'm going to quote you because it's in almost every article about you or about the product. Quote, making floor plans a standard feature on every listing, quote. You have said that probably, I don't know, you tell me how many times you said that. Where does the energy around that come from for you? Because it is impassioned, and I've heard you say it in multiple different ways in multiple different places.
Well, so first and foremost, it comes from our founding team. So some people know this, I think, but CubiCasa actually was founded in Finland.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the whole deep tech that was created by this small group of super genius Finns, and in Finland, there is a floor plan on every single listing. There are other countries like that too. Australia does it. The UK does it. And the US is kind of behind in that sense. So
Gotcha.
We know it can happen. We've seen it happen in other markets. And so the US, we have what we call the floor plan problem. But the problem is we know consumers really want them. Floor plans always rank really high on
it's like number
NAR's
2,
research.
right? Isn't it the second most requested thing beyond photos of the home is the floor plan?
Exactly. It goes photos, data, floor plan every year.
Yeah. Figured.
And so it's something people want because it helps them really deeply understand, is this the right place for me? More than photos can on their own. And so it's obviously something they want, but in the US we don't have it. And so, we wanted to push for something that we felt would make the world a better place in the US. Yes. But also setting that really high expectation of our company's mission is achieving this very audacious, ambitious thing, is really helpful for our employee experience, for our team members. It energizes the whole team around a common goal. And honestly, when you have that, the company can feel a little bit more like a cult than a company. People just talk about this all the time in our team.
Yeah.
And that's cool. It's like a brick wall that we can run through,
It's your North Star. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that subject, talk to us about I'll actually kind of tie the two. You bought the company. So talk to us about the tech behind it. Since you didn't build it, you bought it. It's got to be pretty incredible. Explain to us, how does this work, and what are you guys doing? How are you going to achieve that goal of getting a floor plan on every listing?
So how CubiCasa works is basically anybody with a smartphone and no training can use the phone they already have in their pocket and scan a house in 5 minutes with their phone, and you'll get back a floor plan. So you just download the app, scan the house as you walk through it. You don't even have to really touch the screen. You're just walking and scanning. And that's it. You upload it. We send you back the floor plan within 24 hours. So it's often described as magic. That's the term people use when they use it. It's I didn't think it would work, but it did.
Yeah.
But underneath all of that is a ton of many
Code.
years of deep tech AI, and yes, AI, to use the buzz term, it is really AI. Neural nets processing all sorts of specialized deep tech stuff that was so impressive to us that was why ultimately we made the acquisition.
Give me the layman's version of it. So try to explain to me like an agent.
He called it magic. He did it.
I know, but go to the deep. Like, what is it doing when it's scanning? I'm curious from a technical perspective. It's measuring distance, obviously. Like it's looking. Give me the 30-second on like how that tech works that way.
Yeah. So the scan that you're performing is capturing a big chunk of different sets of data, including the imagery itself that's being captured by the smartphone camera, accelerometer data, tracking data that comes from the different kits that Apple and Android provide. And so we essentially then suck all that in and then process it through this model, this proprietary model that we've done, almost 2 million scans through at this point. And as we just keep running that, the model gets smarter and smarter all the time and can estimate distances, plot shapes, and ultimately that's what drives it.
How accurate are we with it now?
So if you're using an Android device, we say you should expect about a 5% tolerance off of reality. If you're using the new Apple LiDAR devices, so like if your phone has the 3 lenses on it, there's LiDAR data in there that we're capturing. Nice. We say it's more like a 3% tolerance.
And isn't it, I might have read this, but it could be a fever dream, a bourbon-fueled fever dream usually. Didn't I read but it is close enough that it is approved for an appraisal, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
this is appraisal level floor plan mapping, correct?
Yeah. So for CubiCasa to be approved for use in the different GSE sponsored appraisal programs that are going on, we had to get reviewed by Fannie and Freddie. And so basically they both did testing on it and said, companies that are in these appraisal modernization programs are allowed to use CubiCasa.
Can you go deep on that? Talk to us about those appraisal programs. I know there's a bunch of them. There's ones they're coming out with and they're moving towards, I'm assuming, more automated appraisals. Can you give everybody like a rundown on where you think this is going to go? And I guess the question to follow up, which I'll just ask now, is it going to replace appraisers?
So I don't think appraisers will ever be replaced in the process. There's just too much value they create. But I think their role is going to shift pretty significantly to being an analyst instead of a data collector.
Okay. All right. Then go deep on some of these programs where the GSEs are going. And I guess I'm assuming it makes the process smoother and faster for everyone.
Exactly. Now, it's still, I hate to say this, but it's still early days on this stuff being rapidly adopted because the GSEs work intentionally, very thoughtfully and slow to make sure they prove safety and soundness and that their regulator, the FHFA, is comfortable with what they're seeing. So at this point, it's still touching a very small percentage of loans that are actually sold, but that will change over time. And I think the process that will become the majority of loans in the future would be, rather than an appraiser coming to your house to take photos and get a floor plan, it will be a professional who's hired by a company to do that data collection, but they're not an appraiser. In fact, most of the time they are real estate agents. So if you're an agent and you are interested in picking up supplementary income, a lot of the folks doing this data collection are agents.
Kind of reminds me of the BPO days.
Yeah. Same types of things.
Interesting.
Do you see, a couple pieces on appraisal since we're on that topic. Like, for example, in South Dakota, there's such a lack of appraisals, or in North Dakota, there's such a lack of appraisers that sometimes that's the biggest gating issue to closing on time. It's not actually the mortgage process or the real estate process or the title and escrow process. It's getting an appraiser to get out there and look at properties. And you also have the average age of an appraiser. I don't know what it is. I haven't looked at it lately, but it's not young. And it doesn't seem like it's is this sort of is this all coming together out of necessity? Like, will it speed up because of necessity? I guess that's my real question is the financial industry, Fannie, Freddie, FHAH, or whatever it is, those guys, are they trying to find digital solutions because they see the problem in the appraisal industry?
That's part of it. I think if you if you'd ask a lender why they would want to do appraisal modernization, it would be the capacity thing. It would, that you just referenced. Yeah. Like, there's all the horror stories everybody has of, oh, I'm a lender and I had to pay to put up my borrower in a hotel for 5 nights because we couldn't get the appraisal. And so we couldn't close the loan and, you know, all that stuff. For the GSEs, it's also about getting more and better data to make good decisions. The traditional appraisal process, the appraiser's filling out a 2-page PDF with some basic information and a couple photos. And I think what the GSEs want to move towards is more of like a very robust set of data.
Real analytics, regression analysis, comp analysis,
100 photos per property. Yeah, exactly. Just data.
Massive risk mitigation, right?
Exactly.
That they can do digitally with AI scanning and those sorts of things.
Right. You got it.
I want to shift a little bit because I've heard you talk a few times about the app being a buyer's agent tool in sort of this time where most agents who rep buyers, and if you're listening and you're not, you should be, are trying to recreate and recraft their offering. And you've been, in a really interesting way, positioning your product as a buyer agent tool. So if you could talk about that in 2 parts. One, just outside of CubiCasa, someone who started as the lockbox checkouts guy all the way to the president of CubiCasa.
We're never letting that go, by the way.
Ever. How would you be personally thinking about changing and shifting your buyer consultation, just a 30,000-foot view strategic approach? And then specifically with CubiCasa, how are you positioning that as a buyer tool or as a agent's tool for a buyer?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Historically, our app has been used on the listing side. People have used us to get a floor plan that they can put on the listing for marketing purposes. And that obviously is still going to be very important to what we do going forward. But we've had some growing usage from agents using it on the buying side. And it kind of surprised us a little bit, actually, but we're leaning into it now. And what they're using it for is when they're doing home showings, and they're walking somebody through a property that they're particularly interested in. And that, listing didn't have a floor plan on it, for shame, but it does happen.
There's that crazy lunatic passion I was talking about.
Realtors out there that don't put a floor plan on a listing, do your job. Like, for God's sake, do your job. No, seriously. It doesn't cost any. What does a floor plan cost?
We have a freemium model, so you could start for zero if you want.
My point is... Sorry.
Yes.
That's what happens when I don't feel good. Keep going, Jeff.
So, but in those instances where there isn't a floor plan, I think the buyer's agent can add a lot of value by just doing a scan when you're doing the showing. Hey, you guys walk around for 5 minutes. I'm going to get this scan. And then what you get out of that is a really detailed sense of the property that the buyer can hold on to and look at and start making plans on.
Well, yeah, because every buyer, if it's the house, right? Yeah. When they get home that night or the next day, they're like, "Oh shoot, is our sofa
couch going to fit? Or is that
what
about
the kids' beds?" Right? Like having that. Yeah. Again, you probably don't want to do it on everyone you show, but if it's the house and they're seriously considering writing an offer, why not spend the 5 minutes?
No, but Keith, I'm gonna go pick it up back off an idea you said. I would offer houses that we're touring that doesn't have one. I'll do that, and as a premium service, which you would charge extra for as a buyer's agent, if you'd like us or me to send somebody out to get you floor plans on houses that you haven't seen in person, but that may be a reason why you want to go see it in person, we'll go do that. Takes 5 minutes, you said, 24 hours, you have it. Yep. So to me, I'd add that in as a value proposition on my this. When you work with me, here's my, Keith and I are talking about this, our tiers of service. And this premium one we do, tell me any house you want, and we'll get that done.
Yeah. Exactly. And also too, if you are in a heavy relocation market, military base, universities, where people tend to move in and move out with some frequency, or for sure, if you're in a second home market, I mean, you have to have these. You have to, if someone is trying to, I mean, my mom is the best example. She is addicted to looking at properties on the computer. I think she spends 6 to 8 hours a day. Sorry, Mom, I love you. I know you listen. She loves, but it's so infuriating to her because she will, my mom's in her 70s now. Sorry, Mom, I just put you on blast for
no,
the
you're
world.
Definitely not having Christmas dinner.
She's amazing and she knows it. She wants to know if it's a single story. She's not buying a 2-story house again. She's not. Right. And that isn't indicated anywhere in the generic information that you can see through a portal. And the only way you can know that is if there's a floor plan. So look, if you're a second home or high transition area, you have to have this.
Well, I'll go deeper. It's even if it did say first or second story, the photos give you a picture of a room, but you don't know how all those rooms are connected.
Right.
So like, it could be that I've seen a house where it's like, oh man, these rooms look great. And then there was a floor plan. I was like, oh, well, that's why it's priced so low. This is the most chopped up house I've ever seen in my life, But if I hadn't seen that, I would have been like, let's go see it. And would have gone out there and be like, man, that was a waste of my time, you know?
Mm-hmm. Or if it had a primary bedroom on the first floor, she might look at a 2-story, right? Where just the guest bedrooms are upstairs. So like it's odd, but it sounds so, please don't get offended. I know you're passionate about this, but it sounds so trite, right? Like, do a floor plan, right? But the power that comes from it is so much more than what we normally think of when you're thinking of floor plan, right? Like it's not to the buyer that's our North Star as an industry, right? That's sellers and buyers. They want information. Yes. And as you've said, every single survey, this is the third most important thing on the list to them. And if the industry won't provide it for them, then you have an opportunity to differentiate yourself as an agent by providing it for your people. And then when the industry catches up, you'll have to differentiate in some other way. But like, it's an important one. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's something you can point to in an official way too. Like I have a suite of services I offer to buyers agents, right? And this is one of them. And okay, so they don't have to know that the floor plan's free. Okay, don't tell them that. But you can say, hey,
but your time isn't free. You still have to go there and film it. That's regardless of the cost. I mean, I know there's variations of the product and what you can get with different things. But the point is, the agent's time is worth a lot of. They've got to get in the car, drive there 20 minutes, spend time at the house, drive. And that's an hour. A lawyer was doing it. They bill you $500 to $1,000. So like I'm on this kick a lot, as you know, Jeff, about time and agents and what they do. And so all of that is a value and again, can help justify what it is that we do. I want to take you to this thing. You guys are doing a new feature. It's a home report that you guys are coming out with. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. And that's actually really focused on the buyer's agent side of things too. So it's taking the floor plan and converting it into a bunch of very interesting data that you think is going to be relevant to a buyer in particular. But essentially think of it as a big dump of information about the property that is derived from the scan and from the floor plan. So validated square footage, validated count of beds and baths, room by room dimensions. Okay, the living room is this big. It has this ceiling height. Right. And just having all of that in one place so that not only do you have the floor plan, but you can actually kind of get this kind of like thesaurus of the house and really understand its layout and flow in a lot more detail.
Height of ceilings for someone like me.
I want width of doorway.
Width of doorway for Keith.
I'm here. I have feelings, by the way, assholes.
Well, I was making fun of myself.
No, you weren't. It was making fun of me, and it's totally true. I have upward LiDAR sonar that's in my head.
It's called your forehead.
It's actually an interesting, joking aside, it's actually an interesting comment because when I look at houses, it's actually the first thing that I feel, not physically when I hit my head, but like the feng shui of the property. If it's low ceilings, it's just off. Like I'm not interested.
Yeah.
So
it's not right.
Again, that's convenience that the agent's providing the buyer of if this is important to you, you don't need to go look at this house. I don't know why we're stuck on floor plans, but they're really an essential part of this whole process. And it's such a missing component. What is the percentage of houses in the United States that have floor plans? Do you know that number?
We don't know exactly. what the number is. But for our internal tracking, we do have an estimate of ours. So we track our volume of scans that we get each month from our U.S. real estate audience. And then we compare that to the number of new listings nationally from Zillow. And our estimate is that we're above 15% now having a CubiCasa scan performed on them. So that's when we started this journey at the start of 2022, our estimate is the number was 2.3%. That's where we were. So we know we're making an impact, but there's still a lot of room to go.
And then there's going to be other companies that do floor plans. So let's say 30% of the total inventory has a floor plan. I mean, when I search online, I bet, it's going to be like 1 out of every 3 has a.
Yep. Yeah. I'd say that's about right. 20 to 30 in that range.
And James, I'm going to get on my soapbox for 2 seconds. Well, it's going to be more than 2 seconds, but you said, I don't know why we're, so stuck on floor plans. Well, here's the freaking answer why is if you're in this industry and you aren't looking at every single tool and trying to evaluate how that tool can benefit a buyer, you are in for dark days in the, starting, unless it gets pushed back, starting on August 17th. You better be looking at every single tool that's inside your system and outside your system and trying to evaluate how you can help a buyer with that tool. If you don't, you will get to work on new scripts and dialogues like, would you like fries with that? Or some other, if you aren't looking at a tool and going, floor plans, interesting. Well, let me dissect this 100 different ways and try to figure out how I can provide value to my buyer. You're in trouble.
Or the seller. Like the fact that I knew that stat too, Jeff, that, it was in the top 3. Every agent should be going, what are the top 10 most requested thing by buyers? And NAR does that report for you. Here's the top 10 things requested by sellers. You better be offering those top 10 things and taking a percentage of your compensation and putting that towards those tools. So we do it on the list side. We spend 10 to 15% of our of compensation on products and services. Buyers agents haven't had to do any of that. Guess what? You better start budgeting for that now in order to garner that type of compensation, or to Keith's words, you better learn how to say you like fries with that. I'm going
to get in trouble for that.
You are going to get in trouble for that one.
Yeah.
I do want to ask this question because I think it's extremely relevant. I'm sure you'll have an opinion on this. So obviously, Matterport, bought by Homes.com, 1.6 billion. Is that what it was? 1.6 billion.
With a
Sounds about right.
Billion. Sheesh. So are you thinking about spinning out CubiCasa? That's my question.
Well, so I wanted to ask this question in multiple. I want you obviously, this is your realm of expertise. So 1, what's the play? Where do you think they're going with that? 2, is I know Matterport does floor plans as well. There's, I think, a network, like the kind of the conceptual differences between what you guys are doing and what they are. And then I really want to think about, I've been doing on this kick about augmented reality. It's this in a keynote that I'm doing. I'm really focused on that because I have this vision. I think that this is where everybody's going to head up long term. Does all this play, including what you're doing, into an augmented reality experience? So like that was 3 questions in one, but I think they're all intertwined. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay. There's a lot of red meat in all of this.
This is good. I'm a carnivore, not a vegetarian.
Well, first and foremost, we've known the Matterport team for a long time. We're very excited for them. They've built a great product over the years. It's a strong team, and it's exciting for them. I think they've built something.
Selling your company for 200% more than the stock evaluation. That's pretty damn exciting. Well done, Matterport crew. I'm excited for them too. If anyone wants to take me to dinner, holler.
So and I think it's validation of the model that we're working in, that they're working in, that other companies are working in, which is rich media on listings is important. You can't just throw 10 photos on the listing and the counts of beds and baths and say that's enough. So I think it's validation of the model that we're all working towards, which is great. I think for homes, I mean, they've been pretty transparent about the strategy. So I don't have any unique insights. It definitely seems like the portals are in a race to create unique content experiences because, historically they've all had the same content. It comes from the MLS.
Yeah.
They get the photos and they get the data. And I think that core content is still going to be very, very important. But they're trying to think of ways to differentiate. Clearly Zillow's taken a stab in this direction too.
Yeah, with Showcase. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think of this as a response to that. And I think that's good ultimately. I think the more the portals are in this war of how do we create a better experience, the more consumers are going to win.
Right.
Honestly.
Yeah.
They're going to pull agents into this experience, whether they like it or not. Like that's the other.
What do you mean by that?
Well, because if a customer sees this amazing experience and an agent isn't able to offer it, good luck getting the property.
Right.
Like to me, it's pretty straightforward. If the seller's like, I want that, and the agent's like, I don't do that, well, then I'll find another agent that will.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. The bar's going to get raised to your point.
Yeah. It's funny. I scribbled this immediately when you said it, the importance of rich media.
Yeah.
Like thinking through the lens of sometimes in this industry, not everybody listening, probably no one listening because our audience is so good. But there are times where you want to maybe cut corners on costs, right? Like many agents operate on like a nearly 0% cost of goods sold. And I think that needs to change and will continue to change. That this concept of rich media and going beyond, 10 photos and, God forbid you're using iPhone photos or whatever, like that's the worst ever. But thinking about how to use video, social media, photos, floor plans, how are you going to, maybe I'll ask this question this way. So it seems like the online experience and what I'll call the at distance experience, it used to be we could get to the front door, right? And, you could get some information there. Then you got through the front door and there were some photos when you could search and some key information. Where do you what's the next big thing as we continue to move further and further into the home and trying to help someone at distance determine this is my house? Like, is everyone going to be putting on Google glasses and wandering through the house? Or where do you see this bringing the home into the computer screen for a buyer or into not a computer screen for the buyer? What's the evolution of this going to look like?
It's a great question. It harkens back a bit to James's question about AR, VR that I didn't respond to. I'm going to disappoint you.
That's
I don't know that AR, VR is going to be a thing in real estate search until such time that there's a hardware shift that makes it fit.
You mean trying to hold some stupid device in your hand while you've got the Apple Vision Pro on your face that feels like it's like a massive, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, exactly what I'm referring to. AR, VR to me is a fundamentally antisocial activity. You cannot interact with the other people around you. You have goggles on and you're just immersed in this world. And that's cool. It has a cool factor. But I think of real estate search as very much a sharing experience. And I think you want to share a listing with your wife and say, what do you think? Right. And you want to talk about it. And I think mobile, by all accounts, from what I've heard, mobile is 70% of the traffic to the portals because it's something people are checking out when they're, they got a free moment, they're going to pull up listings. So until there's a hardware shift, maybe the Meta glasses are the thing, the Ray-Ban things eventually, I don't know, but that makes it a little more integrated into your daily routines.
Where you can see something normal or have the augmented. What did you say? What did you say? What was it, the acronym AVR? Is that what you said?
AR, VR, sorry, augmented reality or virtual reality.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So if it's not that, what do you think it is? What do you think is,
I think a few things, but I think photos are still the most important product in real estate ever. They aren't perfect, and that's why you need the floor plan, but they're pretty good at telling the story of, is this the right place? So I think those are going to just become even more important. And I think you'll see new AI technologies brought to photos, right? And you're starting to see some of these products now, like virtual staging automatically on a photo.
Right.
I think Redfin's done some cool stuff in that space where, okay, I've got a photo, but I'd like to imagine this room in a different style. And I click in. Oh, that's what it would look like.
That's some pretty cool stuff, by the way, that they're doing with AI on that. So
shout out Glenn Kelman, friend of the pod.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. There's a bunch of companies doing that. There's RE Imagine or Imagine RE was one of them. There's virtualstaging.ai. There's a bunch of them and it's like $16 and you can have all these blank rooms staged or look a different way or remove all the homeowners' ugly furniture that they think is pretty and put like actual pretty furniture in. So
Box Brownie has a
Box Brownie does that too. Yeah, there's a bunch of people do. And why are so then why are people why are agents not doing this now? Like, come on, if a house, there's a number, I believe it was something like a staged house sells, whatever the number is, it sells for more than an unstaged house. So to me, that should be a requirement. If the homeowner loves the shag rug from the 70s, that's nice. It's not going to sell. Like, it needs to be replaced, and you can do AI to do all of that. So,
yeah, totally. And I think that those examples, what you just referenced of how affordable it's getting, that's the story of all of this, right? This trend is like technology is making everything cheaper, more accessible, and scalable. Whether it's you can scan your house with your phone and get a floor plan in 5 minutes, which if you had told me that in 2016, I would have said you're insane.
Yeah, I thought you were nuts.
Or virtually staging or virtual
Home Depot
tours,
was trying to do that, by the way. I don't know if they still do, but it was like $99 and they'll come out and do a floor plan for your house. Like Home Depot is trying to measure it. Yeah, to give you that.
Yeah.
I looked up the stats. Professionally staged home. Now, this is professionally staged, not virtually staged. I don't have that data, but professionally staged home spends 73% less time on the market compared to those without. And a staged home on the market sold for 25% more than homes without staging.
So tiny number.
Yeah. Now, there could be other correlatives, quality of agent, like better agents are probably more willing.
That's a massive number.
But it's not close. Like that is meaningful
for sure. Yeah. So I just think it's all going to continue to get better. I think media on the listing is going to be more and more important. And we'll see where it goes.
Two last questions here, and Keith will wrap us up with our question we always ask. But I wanted to ask your take. Where do you think the realtor fits in the future with all of this tech? And your honest opinion, do you think they're as important? Is it tech empowered agents, which we hear all the time? Is a lot of this stuff going to become available where consumers just want to do it on their own? Like, what's your honest take on all of that?
I think the idea that the agent's going to be disintermediated by tech has been floated around since I was the lockbox guy. I haven't seen it yet.
Never seems to come to fruition, does it?
No. And because it is, fundamentally, this is a human thing. It's scary as hell buying a house. And you need somebody to help you through that process. Now, but do I think that the settlement and the changes in compensation and all of that are going to have an impact? For sure. I think, of course, there's going to be probably some agent reduction. There's going to be some of that. But I think it's also a huge opportunity for people to think, how can I be more effective and efficient with the resources I do have and add more value?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. When you think about people like Keith, I'm going to talk like he's not here.
Yeah. Okay.
This guy tries to automate every aspect of his life that he can.
Facts.
It's a factual statement. So Keith's got this whole thing going on about like, I want an agent to charge more, but like take care of packing my shit, unpacking it, my landscaping, turning on I don't want to go. I just want to go to the house.
I want the first 90 days of yard service. I want the first 90 days of your favorite housekeeper because I don't know anybody in town. Right. I want
Keith will DoorDash a cheeseburger because
hell yeah.
He's like, I don't give a shit what it costs. I don't want to go drive there.
I got one coming right now.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Look, it's been proven we will pay for convenience, right? Yeah. We will absolutely pay for convenience. So why not use that as part of your thought process and how you're crafting and reshaping how you work with buyers?
All right, wrap us up.
Take us out on this one. If you were an agent or a brokerage, what's the one thing you would implement today to help your business and drive it forward that isn't called CubiCasa? Got him.
Damn it. That was going to be my answer.
Of course.
Well, besides CubiCasa.
Yes, sir.
I think if you're a buyer's agent, but we've kind of already hit on this, but I just think it's so important. And James and Keith, I know you guys think this way too, but you need to have a clearly defined set of offerings.
Yes.
That is communicated up front and should sound impressive as hell.
Yeah.
I think, and there's a lot of different ways you can do that, but I think buyer's agents really haven't done that much historically, at least in my experience. When I bought houses, I contacted an agent and said, I'd like to see some houses. Mm-hmm. And they said, okay. And that was like the extent of our engagement, like to say, are we going to work together?
Yeah. Not what I do. Here's my experience. Why did you call me? You know, like this, there's no development of a relationship.
Yeah. Well, it's been this really fun and elegant thought exercise about tell me about your dream home and what do you love about this one? What do you not? And trying to help you hone in and identify the right property for you, which is a really valuable and important step in the process that isn't going away. But now we are going to have to show our work, right? In a way that we haven't in the past. And you got to get ready for it. 100%.
Yep. Good words, my friend. Well, first of all, congrats on all the success. I love what you guys are doing, by the way. For everybody that's listening, you should be calling, having this conversation about getting people to use this stuff. I'm not a spokesperson for them, but the fact that you can create floor plans, we've given you some great ideas. It's all about enhancing value, and everyone who listens to this pod should be figuring that out. I
got one quick question, Jeff. Can we get a copy of that report that you just started rolling out? We can put a link in the show notes so that people, if they want to check it out,
it's great.
Click and go look at it. Do you have that?
Absolutely.
Hosted somewhere? Awesome.
Yep.
Cool. We'll put that in the show notes. Awesome.
And with that, my friend, thanks for being here. And I'm sure Keith and I will run into you at some real estate conference shortly. Congrats on all the success. And we'll look forward to having you back and hearing about more of it in the future. So
cool. I'm a big fan of the podcast. And yes, we'll see you at the lobby bar of some hotel somewhere at some point.
Usually.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Jeff.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
It's our job to say out loud what everybody's only thinking to themselves. It's your job to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode.